In May 2024, India's government once again rolled out the red carpet for global investors at the annual Vibrant Gujarat Summit. Speeches were made, CEOs praised, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi declared India the next global manufacturing hub. But, behind the headlines and choreographed applause, the numbers told a very different story. Foreign direct investment in India dropped 16% in 2024, the lowest since 2018. That's not a wobble, that's a siren. Companies like Apple, Samsung, and Foxconn are now pivoting to Vietnam, Indonesia, and even Bangladesh. They aren't leaving because they lack confidence. They're leaving because they're tired of dealing with India's deeply dysfunctional system. India is, and continues to be, an overhyped, overregulated, underperforming mess that can't stop getting in its own way. Please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. For years, lazy analysts and glitzy think tanks pushed the tired narrative that India would become, the next China. 1 billion people, rising tech adoption, an English-speaking population, and the illusion of democracy were all sold as competitive advantages. Reports from McKinsey, quotes from World Bank officials, and recycled Bloomberg headlines all peddled the same fantasy. And honestly, the world really believed it. Hook, line, and sinker. What made it worse is that Indians themselves bought into this hype with even more conviction. The idea that India was on the brink of overtaking China became a sort of national gospel. It was repeated so often in headlines, at investment forums, and on political stages that people just stopped questioning whether it was actually true. You could say the world was fooled. For nearly a decade, the assumption was that India would rise simply because it was, next in line. But now, people are waking up. Investors, analysts, and even some Indian business leaders are starting to realize the painful truth. This story was built on empty comparisons, wishful thinking, and honestly, just surface-level metrics. Now that the money is on the table and results are expected, the illusion is collapsing. India was never the next China. It was a glossy brochure masking a broken foundation. Take Apple. For years, India begged Tim Cook and Apple to shift its supply chain. And yes, in 2025, Apple did announce it would shift more of its US-bound iPhone production to India. But the real story is more complicated. Apple still manufactures the vast majority of its products in China. The pivot to India is cautious and mostly symbolic. Foxconn, Apple's key supplier, committed $1.5 billion to build new plants, but it's done so while actively keeping operations in Vietnam and China fully functional. Apple isn't choosing India, it's hedging against geopolitical tension. In fact, Apple executives have made it clear, India cannot replace China, not even close. Samsung offers another reality check. It has long relied on Vietnam, where its exports now top $23 billion annually. Despite India's flashy promises, Samsung continues to rely on Vietnam's superior infrastructure and logistics. Samsung has pulled back on certain Indian expansion plans, in part because of India's slow regulatory approvals and inconsistent tax regime. And let's not forget Amazon. After sinking over $6.5 billion into India, the company is now exploring options to spin off its India operations altogether. Why? Well, because it keeps hitting regulatory walls, policy flip-flops, and a consumer base that's, over-regulated and under-monetized. And how can we ignore the Foxconn Vedanta debacle? In 2023, the Indian government celebrated the announcement of a $19.5 billion chip fab project in Gujarat. But by mid-2023, Foxconn pulled out, citing delays in India's inability to meet land and infrastructure requirements. The tax structure in India is honestly another nightmare. While the corporate tax rate is advertised at 22%, effective rates are significantly higher once surcharges and levies are added. GST was supposed to unify and simplify tax collection. Instead, it introduced a 5-slab system so complex that even chartered accountants struggle to keep up. Frequent revisions, unpredictable enforcement, and constant litigation make tax planning in India a gamble. Vodafone and Cairn Energy both faced retroactive tax demands that led to international court battles. When a government has to be told by a tribunal that it can't retroactively shake down investors, there's a systemic problem. And the bureaucracy? It's suffocating. While India parades its ease of doing business rankings, the reality on the ground is far from easy. Getting a simple environmental clearance or construction permit can take months, sometimes years. State-level inconsistencies make it nearly impossible for businesses to operate across India smoothly. In contrast, Vietnam's special economic zones offer one-stop approval windows, while Indonesia has digitized customs and drastically cut import wait times. Meanwhile, in India, even getting electricity in a new facility can involve multiple offices, bribes, and delays. Legal enforcement is another massive barrier. According to the World Bank, it takes an average of 1,445 days, nearly 4 years, to enforce a basic commercial contract in India. The courts are chronically understaffed and overloaded. Arbitration isn't much better, often requiring costly legal battles and inconsistent rulings. Labor laws are a web of contradictions that make hiring and especially firing employees a legal nightmare. No serious investor wants to deal with that kind of exposure. The political environment isn't helping either. Under Modi's leadership, India has grown more protectionist and nationalistic. Foreign e-commerce firms have been targeted with restrictive laws. Data localization rules have made it harder for global tech firms to operate efficiently. Chinese apps were banned outright, and even American firms like Amazon and Walmart-owned Flipkart have faced constant harassment through new rules and policy changes. This isn't just instability, it's hostility toward foreign capital. While India throws economic summits and makes big speeches, Southeast Asia is simply executing. Vietnam has signed multiple free trade agreements and delivered real results. Indonesia under Joko Widodo has implemented clear, fast-moving economic reforms. Even Bangladesh is now gaining traction as a manufacturing base for garments, electronics, and more. These countries don't spend their time promising, they just deliver. And that's the problem. India has had more than a decade of international goodwill, a favorable demographic dividend, and more attention than most emerging economies could dream of. But it squandered that opportunity with indecision, inefficiency, and honestly, a lot of political noise. Global investors aren't falling for the hype anymore. They've seen the data, they've lived the delays, and yeah, they've watched other countries move faster and deliver better. In 2025, capital flows toward clarity, speed, and performance. India, for all its noise and optimism, delivers none of that. It had a shot, it had momentum, but it blew it. Investors are now taking their money elsewhere, and unlike before, they might not come back, because the world is finally realizing what should have been obvious a long time ago. India is not the next China. It's a cautionary tale, a case study in wasted potential. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content.